Gemara in Shekalim Daf Tes. All the learning for this month, the month of Nisan, as in sponsored by the Grun family, the Nishmas Chaim Mordechai ben Naftali Tzvi, the Neshama Shavan Aliyah. The schus of all the learning of all these dafim, these wonderful, perhaps a bit difficult dafim, should be a tremendous schus Aliyah Nishmasai. Of course, Achayim Men Beveng Chaim Mesar Sham Sivan Reizil Sar Baskinendel Tupasim As Chaisay Yisrael Memindel Aliyah Zeparzim Shavlei Shom Vas Nomi Shavego Shulchan of Aldavini Tiri Shom Nidel Chani Chanu Yiz on the Milchai Basmin Librachas Tobi Musa Dinena Bes Shem Mindel Simcha Tavia Ben Avigal Fashas Vim and Figadrom Mechel Zom Netzil Huva Nachamendel ben Toba, B'Soich Sharacholi Yisrael, and Eschoshiv Platalea Basito, Nachamendel ben Elisheva. We pick it up on the very bottom of Ches Amid Beis. Apologies, here we go. The bottom of Ches Amid Beis. We just finished two fabulous stories about Talmidei Chachamim, what makes them shine, what makes them happy. Says the Gemara, 2 lines from the bottom, 3 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav Chanin, says Rav Chanin, Luga de Araisa Timnasa Atika. A lug, biblical lug, is an eighth of an old Timnasa de Musirai Tisipairi that you would use to measure the fish fats in Sipairi. This sounds familiar. Then that the fabulous thing is we had this very recently in the Gemara Psachim when we spoke about the Daled Concise. So says the Gemara, you want to know what the Revius is, you got to find this to measuring spoon cup thingy that's called a timnas. They used to measure the fish fats in Sipairi. Amar Rav Yeina, says Rav Yeina, and I remember that this utensil that we're calling the timnasa, the base Rabbi Yana have a machilin dvash. Rav Yana used to use it to measure honey. Tani, it learned in the Mishnah, Chanti Shminius Tavarnis, 1/8 of the measurement in Tiveria. Moving along to today's daf test, Hayishana of the old one, Hayishana of old, meaning the Revius is 1/8 of the old measurement that they had in Tiveria. Amar Rav Yechran, Hadin Didan Havai, our measurement now is the same size as it was as that old measurement. So now the obvious question is, if it's the same size now as it was then, why is it an old measurement? Ask the Gemara, so why is it called old? It's the same measurement. Explains the Gemara, 2 different terutim, min bigin davi b'yayma. I'm sorry, it's part of the question. It's the same measurement as it was originally. Answers the Gemara, is the Amri, 3 lines down, that it was smaller and it got larger. And that's the reason why that it was... It's the Amri, that it was smaller and then it became larger, meaning there was a time that it went down. Now it's back to the original large one. Vista Amri, very similar. Da'azira, that it was reduced, it got smaller. V'loyazira kama dahavas, and it didn't go all the way back to that which it was. Basically, the 2 terutim are teaching us that there was a point in time that the measurement was different. So that's what we have to know. Now it's back to what it was back then, but there was a few years, maybe hundreds of years, who knows, that the measurement was slightly different. And that is the measurement of the Revius. Of course, we need to know for the Daled Kaisais, like we learned yesterday, of course, we have to know for a Kiddush, etc. Kamu Shir Shal Kais, ask the Gemara, what is the measurement, the size of a cup that holds a Revius? Revius B'Shem, Revius in Pazi, Revius Bar Bibi B'Shem Shmuel, Etzba'im Al Tzba'im, Al Rum Etzba, 2 fingers by 2 fingers, with the depth of 1 finger, Umechsa and a half, Ushlish Etzba, and 1/3 of a finger, which again, we had this in Gemara Psachim, those difficult math Gemaras, figuring out, and from here we figured out how big a bail was, and we went to the size of the mikvah, etc. But that is how big a kais that holds exactly a revius. Says the Gemara, Tani, we learned in the Mishnah, Yavish Kazayis Divri Rav Nasan. We spoke earlier yesterday. What's the size of your chayah for carrying out wine? We said it's revius. We spoke about that. It's diluted. It's 1/4. That when you dilute it, it becomes a full revius. But says Rav Nasan, if it's congealed wine, different gear size, so you take out this line, but either way, if it's congealed wine, then your chayah for carrying it on Shabbos, the size of a kizayis. Rabbanan de Kisri, the Rabbanan from Kezar, Rav Yesi Bar Bibi B'Shem Shmuel Asya, the Rav Nasan. To Rav Shimon, they explain that Rav Nasan goes the opinion of Rav Shimon that Kamad Rav Shimon Amar B'Ravius, that which Rav Shimon said that the measurement for wine is a ravius. Kainam Rav Nasan ravius. So too Rav Nasan agrees it's a ravius. Likish yikrash when it congeals veba kazayis. That's what he means. It's a kazayis, meaning that he's not disagreeing. He's holding the same shear for carrying on Shabbos. Is a ravius. He's just explaining that when it congeals, it becomes a solid. It's a kazayis. Those are always really the two measurements everyone always has to know. Liquids always go by a ravius, and solids always go by a kizayis. And here the Gemara is proving that the two are really synonymous, but in La Halacha, we also have to know that those are the two measurements. Rav Simon b'Shem Rav Yeshua ben Levi says, Maisa be'pirdas Rabbi Shamsa. There was a story with the mule of Rav Shamsa, V'tiaru estama, and they said that the blood of that mule that was dead is not tamei misham nevela. It does not have tamei nevela. We know a dead carcass has a tamei nevela, sharetz, etc. The question is, what is the blood that comes from that carcass? So there's a story with this mule, and they said that blood, which we don't know the quantity of the blood, which is why we're bringing this in, as we'll see in a moment, but that blood, they said, is tar, does not have tuma nevela. So Vishal Rabbi Eliezer as Rav Simoin, so Rabbi Eliezer asked Rav Simoin, ad kama, how much blood was there? V'lo yashkach bei. And he didn't listen to him. Rav Simoin did not respond to Rav Eliezer's question of what was the quantity of blood. So we continue. Vishal Rav Yeshua ben Levi. So Rav Eliezer asked Rav Yeshua ben Levi, V'amarli ad ravius tar. Until ravius of blood, it's tar. Yoiser me ravius tamei, more than a ravius of blood. Then we already assume that it has the quantity that will be tamei. Ubash Rav Elazar. And Rav Elazar was upset. Why? Because Rav Simoin did not answer him. Again, Rav Elazar asked Rav Simoin what was the quantity. Rav Simoin did not answer. He asked Rav Yeshua ben Levi. Rav Yeshua ben Levi responded, up to Ravius is tar, more than that is tamei. Similar, like we saw before, that Ravius is the same quantity that we keep on needing to know. And Rav Elazar was upset that Rav Simoin did not answer his question. Rav Bibi, now similarly, the Gemara continues, Rav Bibi Aviyosef Masni Hadin Avda. Rav Bibi was sitting and he was telling over the story of the mule of Rebbe's house that died, and he said over the blood, there was blood, and the blood was tar. And again, when Rav Bibi said over the story, he as well did not know how much blood was there. So it's almost a repetitive story now. Amrle Rav Yitzchak, Bar Bisna, Kahana, he explained that, like we just saw a moment ago, the same din, that it's tar until Ravius, more than that will be tamei. Ubat Bey, and he kicked him, literally, he wasn't happy with him limiting this Kula, will call it, limiting it to only a Revius. Amar le Rav Zrika begin the Shalachat Bad Bey. What's going on? I asked you a question and you hit me? I'm just trying to figure out what was it, up to Revius or not? And you got all upset at me. What's going on? Amar le, he responded, no. Begin to Lahavi Daite be Bat Nebi. You know why I hit you? Whether it means hit, whether it means you got upset, whether it means you just showed a little displeasure, whatever it means. But he explained, you know why? Nothing to do with you. The reason is lavi daiti. I didn't have my das. I wasn't. My mind wasn't there. Why? Why not? Now he explained why his mind wasn't there. I'm sorry. Now we're going to darshan up these psukim from the Teichacha. It says that your life is going to hang in the balance. Mineged opposite you, and we learn out what does this pasuk mean. That this is referring to someone who buys weed for a whole year. And you're going to be nervous and you're going to be anxious, frightened by night. Day. That's referring to this is the one that buys the grain from in small quantities. Sidki, and the pasuk concludes that you will not be sure of your life. You're not going to have any. You're not going to know if you're going to even live. This refers to someone who buys his bread from a breaker, meaning he doesn't even have enough money to buy for more than one day. Every day, whatever money he has, he goes and buys a piece of bread for that day. So again, when he got upset, when who was Rav Simoin, when when Rav Bibi got upset, he explained, I got upset because I am in that last category. And I unfortunately only have enough money to buy bread for each day. So I'm a bit anxious. My life is not life, as the pasuk says. His das was not there. My wine was this, so I got upset at you. But it has nothing to do with the din that you said. And it's true that only until the Ravias will be tar, more than Ravias of dam, will already be considered tamei, and of course this goes hand in hand with the din that we saw earlier. The reason being because more than a ravius will be more than a kizayis, and that's going to be when there is tama. And now the Gemara concludes, concluding about kadoin lamaisa. What is the halacha? How much blood becomes is tar, and how much becomes tamei of the nevela? Hey, Rav Yeshua ben Betaira gave testimony al dam nevela shu tar ma'u tar milahachshir. What does it mean that it's tar? It's tar, meaning tar. I'm sorry, let's pause there for a moment. He said it's tar. Seemingly, what does that mean? It means it's always tar, even more than a ravias. On that, the Gemara says no. Mahu tar milahachshir. It means it's only tar from making something susceptible to accept toma. As we always know, there's always two levels. There's one level that's called a liquid. To be called any item, you have a piece of grain, an apple, it's only mikabel toma, becomes susceptible to accepting toma if it becomes wet. So this liquid is tar milahachshir. It doesn't have the quality to make something else able to accept toma. However, it itself is tamei. Avol litmois mitame, but it will, yes, be mitame. Tamon taninon, and we learned in a Mishnah, tam hasharetz kivsarai, that the blood of a sharetz is like its flesh. Mitame ve'inai machshir. What does it mean? It's like its flesh. That it's mitame, that it gives off toma. Ve'inai machshir doesn't make something susceptible to accept toma. Ve'in lanu ki yaitze bai, and there's nothing similar to it. Meaning everything else in the world, the blood has the same din as the flesh. Over here we see that the blood is slightly different. Why? Because we see that the blood is that it doesn't mitame ve'enoi machshir, but it doesn't make the thing susceptible to accept toma. So seemingly it doesn't give off toma. So what's going on over here? So the Gemara explains v'shir tomasai shedamai mitame kibisarai, and the shear is like its flesh itself. Shedamai, which means it's going to be only until a revius, because more than a revius, it's going to be considered like a kizayis of dam. Because a revius congealed is a kizayis, and they're going to give off toma. Meaning, just like the flesh, the din is a sharetz, the dead body itself. Let's say this mule, it also only gives off toma if the piece of the body is a kizayis. So too, we're learning the dam, the blood, is the same thing, that it's only going to give off if it is a kizayis. And on this, the Gemara concludes, Amar Rav Yosi, Pligi Beit Trein Amarayin. There are two Amarayin that disagreed about this. Chad Amar Tameh v'Chad Amar Tar. One said it's Sameh, and one said it's possible to give off tama, meaning when it's more than ravius. V'chad amar tar, that it's always tar. Man damar tamei ki Rav Yehuda, man damar tar ki Yeshua ben Pisaira. And that is the conclusion of that machlokes on Amalei Rav Avduma demin nechuta v'yeyos. And you're right with that which you said. Rav Yehuda Maraina deveina nesiavai, because Rav Yehuda would be the one who was the Maraina. He was the paskin the halacha in the house of the Nasi, which was Rebbe's house, which was the whole story with the mule, where this whole story began. And he was one that said it is tar. And now we are learning that that's only when it's less than a ravius of blood. But when it's going to be a ravius, the opposite. He held it's going to always be tar. He held that it's going to always be tar. And that is the end of this discussion. So basically, let's give a quick recap. We had a mule. A mule died. And the mule had blood. Did that blood give off tumah? That was the discussion that we just had. Said the Gemara, the blood did not give off tuma. Now, at the end of the day, we know that it's Rav Yehuda Meraina, not Rav Yehuda Meraina, Rav Yehuda, he was one that paskin that shayla, that the blood did not give off tuma. Why did the blood not give off tuma? There's two options. Either because it wasn't enough of a quantity to give off tuma, it was smaller than a ravius, or no, even if it's larger than a ravius, it still did not give off tuma. What would be the chiddush? The chiddush would be that we just saw at the beginning of today that once blood is a ravius, then it has the same status and the same size as a kizayis. And the halacha is, once you have a kizayis, an olive's worth of the nevila itself, then it, yes, gives off tama. So therefore, one would have assumed that once the blood is a revius as well, then has the same quantity as the kizayis. And on that we're learning that there was a bit of a machlekes between these two amarayim, whether that is true or not. One held that it's Tameh is going to be like Rav Yehuda, and one that held it's Star is going to be like Rav Yeshua ben Besaira. Now there's different girsas over here, but again, that is how we see that Rav Yehuda himself held that a revius of blood does yes give off Tama. So again, Rav Yehuda, when he paskin, I'm sorry if I said that wrong before, I know I went back and forth, let's get this clear. Rav Yehuda, when he paskin the story, the reason was it was less than a revius, but once it hit a revius, then it's going to be giving off Tama. Why? Because then it has the same quantity as a kizayis. And that is the opinion of Rav Yehuda, whereas Rav Yeshua ben Besaira disagrees and holds it's always a unique din of the blood of a nevela. Says the Gemara. Shema Ya'ani Va'imru. Back into the Mishnah. Let's go back what we discussed in the Mishnah. This is really going to be, says the Gemara, that what's the din of the Mishnah was he had to go into this lishka, into this treasury in the base of Mikdash. You had all these coins, a machzah shekel, and 3 intervals of the year they would go in and they would withdraw the coins. They would withdraw the coins each time into 3 boxes. Alf base gimel, 3 boxes 3 times a year, 3 saw each box, 27 saw in total. And we said that when the person went in, the gizbar went in to withdraw the coins, he's not allowed to wear a hemmed garment, and he can't wear an amulet, he can't wear tefillin, he can't wear any of these things. Why? Because we don't want someone to suspect him that he's pocketing some of the cash from the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Gemara, Tani Rav Yishmael, continuing on the items that one is not allowed to wear when he goes into the Beis HaMikdash. Says Rav Yishmael, Kavot, Lo Yitraim. Someone with long hair, he also cannot be the one to take the coins. They might think he'll hide in his hair. Tani Hagizbarim my Mefasas in Bekilkalin. Says the Gemara, furthermore, how careful they were that the Gizbarim, the treasures, they would separate their woolen garment. When they came out, they would show there's nothing inside. They had these big fat garments that something could stick in. They would show there's nothing inside of it. Tani, furthermore, they says when the gizbar would go in the entire time, they would be talking with him. They would talk to him the whole time. Why would they talk to him? They would talk to him. Why? He said, explain the mavarshim so that he doesn't have a chance to hide a coin in his mouth. So if he was talking, he can't put a coin in his mouth. Asks the Gemara, 1 second, why don't they just fill up his mouth with water? Let him go in with a mouthful of water, then he can't hide the coin in there either. You know why? They had to make a bracha when they separated the machzah shekel, similar to the bracha when he separated truma. Says the Gemara, Rav Shmuel Bar Nachman b'Shem Rav Yonasan b'Terim Nevi'im L'Ksuvim, in all of Tanakh, all 3 books, we see this concept that a person has to be careful with that which people think about him. Just like he has to be careful from the eyes of God. As we've seen, you have to be naki, clean from God in Yisrael. And the Jews had to know. So we see that not only you have to be careful in front of Hashem, also in front of Israel. You found honor and favor in the eyes of God and man. Which pasuk is the clearest showing us his halacha? So halacha, they have to be so careful at which people say about us. As we see over here, they made sure not to wear any sort of clothing, any sort of long hair, etc., so no one would think they pocketed any of the money. That pasuk is the clearest pasuk. Says the Mishnah, Halacha Gimel, in this 3rd parak of Shekalim, Shal Beis Rav Gamliel, Hayanichlas v'Shaykel Benes Ba'isaf. The people of the house of Gamliel would come into the treasure when they would give their machzah shekel. They would take their coins and they would put it with their fingers, v'zarku lefnei atayrim, and they would push it in front of the one that was taking off the coins. And the gizbar, the treasurer who was taking, would make sure to take these coins. Again, let's play out the story. We have a gizbar in the Beis HaMikdash. He's about to take out all the coins, fill up his 3 boxes to use for the different karbanis, etc. The people of Gamliel's house would come, the final ones to give, and they would take their coins and they would push it right in front of the treasurer. So when the treasurer is going to take his coins, he would see this coin of Rav Gamliel's house, and he would go and he would make sure to grab it, and that would be one of the coins included inside the karbanis, included inside the boxes. Says the Gemara, now, just to point out the obvious question, everyone's wondering, what's the difference if he takes your coin? It's a good question. The reason being, because It's nothing to do with if it's your coin. Every person in Klal Yisrael had to give a machzah shekel. When they would fill up those boxes, they would then buy communal karbanos. And those karbanos were for everyone, whether your coin was in there or not. And we're going to see in Amud Beis why the people of Rav Gamliel's house wanted their coins specifically to be taken. Says the Gemara, the treasure would not take until they would tell him, till they would tell him to take from the coins. I'm sorry, you would ask them, is it time for me to take? And they would tell him, take 3 different times. He would take out the first time, he would fill up the 3 boxes, and then he would cover over whatever was remainder. Again, he went to the base of Mikdash, filled the box A, B, and C, Aleph, Beis, and Gimel, and there were some coins left over. Those coins he would cover over with a leather covering. Hashniya, the second time of the year he would go in, we know he went in 3 different times. Again, he would fill up the 3 boxes, covered over with leather covering. The third time, he wouldn't cover it. So why are we covering it? And then we'll know why he didn't cover it on the third time. Because maybe he'll come, maybe he'll come to take from that which is already taken. Meaning, he would go in and he would separate 3 boxes. All the coins are now considered to have been separated, even the ones that are left over, because they were part of this separation, and all the coins include everything. So now, when people come and they give coins later, as we've seen previously, people from faraway cities, etc., would sometimes miss the date and they would give coins. So the new coins that were given will go on top of this leather covering, so that the next time that they take, they would make sure don't take from the ones underneath, because those were already separated. Make sure to take from the top ones. The first separation of the same Eretz Yisrael, Vashniya l'shem Karacham, Amukafim, the ones that were walled cities, Vashish l'shem Bavel l'shem Madai, U'l'shem, and for the cities of, as we turn over to Zesam and Beis, Medinas Arachaika, is the further cities. So this was the process how they took off the machzah shekel. Says the Gemara, Shal Beis Rav Gamliel, that first story, Ilu haya shnei karayim, Says the Gemara, if there were 2 piles and someone took truma from one pile for the other pile, Shemalai, Shemalai, I lost my place here. Shemalai pater chaverai. Is it true that maybe he didn't pater up his friend and v'nasei kula sharayim? Is that possible? Apologies, I'm all over the place over here. Okay, one more time. Is it possible that he didn't pop up the other one? Of course he did. Meaning, if I have 2 piles of truma and I'm separating from A for B, we know truma works b'machshava. Truma works the way you want it to work. So if I'm separating A for B, B for A, what's halacha? It's all considered part of the separation. So ask the Gemara, why are the people of Gamliel's house? The question we spoke out. Why do they want their coin to be chosen? Who cares? Every coin that was in this box is considered to be part of the karbanos they're going to buy. Says the Gemara, interesting answer. No, there was a special satisfaction. They had a carbon. They wanted the karbanos to be from theirs, which of course is a bit difficult, because what's the difference if your coin is actually there or not? Because at the end of the day, it's part of the carbon, okay? But there was a special satisfaction, and we understand this in a very physical level, but what it means over there is special satisfaction that their monies were used. Says the Gemara, Tanya learned in the Brisa, Shamat as akatablois. If the leather covers were accidentally removed, and then what happens? And then the next time people came to give, all the coins are mixed together. So now we don't know what to do, because then by the second separation, we don't know which coins are new and which coins are old. Says the Gemara, Nasekula Shirayim, they're all considered old, and therefore we cannot use them for the karbanos. So rather, we're going to use them for other communal matters like the old coins were. Tani, we learned in our Mishnah, Shlishis, the third time was the richest of all of them. What's the reason? We understand this because we learned the previous Dafim. Because the third time they separated, what coins were there? These were the coins of the people who had to travel very far. People who had to travel very far. Did they bring machzah shekels? No. They brought golden coins. They brought bigger coins. Why did they bring bigger coins? Like we learned in the previous Dafim, because it was difficult to schlep all the coins. So the third time they took the separations, they filled up the same size boxes, but they were obviously the same amount of coins, but each coin was worth more. So that was the richest separation. Just to give a simple example, if we were to fill up a box of quarters and fill up the same box with dollar bills, of course the box dollar bills will be worth more. That's what's going on. Tani, we learned in the Mishnah, Tarmas of Rishayna, Shem Eretz Yisrael, Shem Kol Yisrael, Shnia, the second time, the Shem Krachim HaKafan, the Shem Kol Yisrael, Vashlish, the Shem Bavel, Madai, Shem Medinas Arachayk, the Shem Kol Yisrael. Tana, we learned in the Mishnah, Natal Min Rishayna, they would take the first time Afal Bishish Rishayna, even though there's still some left. Natal Min Ashnia, they will put it into the second box. Natal Min Ashnia, Afal Bishish Bishnia, even though there's still room. Natal Min Ashlishis, then they will put into the third box. Shalma Shlishis, when the third box was finished, Chayzel Shnia, they went back to number 2. Shalma Shnia, Chayzel Rishayna, they went back to number 1. Shalma Shlashtan, then Chayzer V'Shaykel. If they finished all 3, then he would go and take from the new shkalim that are not yet leftovers. Rameir Aimer, Chayzer L'Shirayim, they would go and everything left over would be considered Shirayim. Why? Rameir Aimer, Rameir would say, Maya Limbi Shirayim, there is a din of Me'ilah with the Shirayim, Shami Yitzarech Lembe Saif, maybe they'll need them in the end, and therefore Rameir held you even allowed to collect from the Shirayim. Let's explain what's going on over here. Again, the Gizber goes into the base of Mikdash. He's filling up box A. Aleph, box base, box gimel. What's the problem? Problem is, let's say at the third time you would separate, how many coins are left? We don't know. So we'd fill up the first box of 3 saw. The second box, the third box, maybe he's not going to get to the third box. And we want to make sure all 3 boxes have some coins. So we'd fill up the first one partially, then go to number 2. Partially, number 3. Fill up number 3 all the way, then go back to number 2, fill it up all the way. Number 1, fill it up all the way. Now, what do we do? If we still need more, then that's the machlekes in Tanakam and Rameir, whether we're going to take from the old coins or not. Rameir says we're allowed to take from the old coins, because Rameir held that the old coins still have a din of me'ilah, meaning they still have a kedusha onto them. Would you say, now exactly how this has to do with the previous Gemara is a bit difficult. But probably it goes back to what we started off today learning. It goes back to the point of being v'yisim dekiyim. Yes, it goes back that you don't even have the appearance of any sin. So now we're going in and learning a bit musar about Averis, a famous brayso, Pinchas ben Yair. Of course, we all know from the Mesil Sisharim. Zrizas, diligence, maybe it's the Nikias, brings one to cleanliness. Nikias, maybe it's the Tahira Mavil, the Kedusha, to holiness, Kedusha, maybe the lowliness, humility, that's the right word. Anava Mavil, the Yeras Chait, fear of sin, Yeras Chait, the Chasidus, piety, Chasidus, maybe the Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh, maybe the Tchias HaMesim, maybe the Elio, Zachor LaTayv, a very famous brayso, but we see the totem pole and the stepping stones and this ladder that one goes up in order to reach all the way up until Elio Hanavi says. Now it comes at Rabbi ben Yair and he brings Mekayres for each one. How do we know that they'll save the Kolam Achaber? The pasuk says, and he finished atoning. The kohen got an atonement for all of them. So we see that then comes Tahira. Then Vikachu. We see first the Tahira, then Kedusha. Kedusha Anava Dechsev Ki Goy Mar Hashem Ram V'Nisa Sheikhin Ad V'Kadosh Shemai Maram V'Kadosh Ashkechan. I'm sorry, it's all part of the pasuk. Again, one more time. Kichom Hashem, Ram Nisa Shechan Ad V'Kadosh Shemai, Maram V'Kadosh Ash, Eshkoin V'Esdaka, Ushval, Ruach. So we see at the end of the pasuk is Shval Ruach. So we see Anava is after the Kedusha. Finally comes Anava made the years Achet. Then Anava, humility, brings one to fear of sin. Dechsev Ikev Anava years Hashem. The heel, literally, the result of Anava is fear of Hashem. So we see years Achet is after Anava. Years Achet Mevilah de Chasidos. Dechsev Chesed Hashem Eilam Ad Eilam Al Yirav. Chesed Hashem Eilam Al Eilam Al Yirei Of. Chasidus maybe the day Ruach HaKodesh. Dechsev, then comes Ruach HaKodesh. Dechsev, as the pasuk says, as Dibrais B'Chazayin. The pasuk says, as Dibarta B'Chazayin Chasidecha. Then Hashem spoke in a vision. Then came the Chasidecha. So we say Chasidecha is the higher level after Ruach HaKodesh. Then we see that Chasidus then comes Ruach HaKodesh because Oz it's after Ruach HaKodesh. They Tchias HaMeisim Dechsev. V'Nesat Ruach B'Chem Chayastem Tchias HaMeisim Mevela De'Eliyah Zachor LaTayv. Hashem says, I'm going to send you Eliyahu Navi. The great and awesome day, the day that Eliyahu Navi is going to come. We conclude the parak of Tana B'Shem Rameir. We learned in a brayso named Rameir. Call me. Anyone who lives as a resident in Eretz Yisrael and he speaks Lashon HaKodesh, and he eats his fruits b'tahira in tahira, in purity. And if he eats krishma in the morning, in the evening, he'll know that he's going to come to Olam Haba. Of course, how exactly does this work? It sounds like you don't need anything else. A bit difficult. One mile wonderful of Shekalim as we see short prakim. We should do a chazara of the parak about the shleisha prakim of the 3 times that they took onto the 3 boxes and they covered each one with leather in each interval. In each interval they would fill up 1 and then 2 and then 3, then fill 3, then 2, then 1. And we'll start the new parak Mir Tashem tomorrow.